I am Kelly Nett, and I am going to start the meeting pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to the extending certain COVID-19 measures adopting during state of emergency, signed into law on June 16th, 2021. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by any members of the public will be permitted. There was a webinar link, and it is 4:32, and Lauren Bailey Jones, Aaron Teleferry, and Kelly Gannett are present, along with Superintendent Martineau and Ms. Pellegrino. I will turn the meeting over to Superintendent Martineau for the FY23 preliminary budget discussion.
All right, so thank you very much. So the purpose of this meeting this evening is to review the preliminary budget presentation in preparation for the committee's, I believe, December 1st school committee meeting, and to answer any questions that the committee members might have around the budget process or the preliminary budget numbers. So I'm going to share my screen and share a presentation.
Greg, do you want to make me assistant host or something to watch the waiting room, or Rebecca or somebody?
I was just going to say the same thing, Kelly.
So you both are now co-hosts.
Okay.
Sorry, should have started from the beginning. Hang on one second. All right, so just a quick overview. So looks like Keith is in the audience.
Just let him in.
So October 29th, the principals and directors submitted their preliminary budgets to Becky Pellegrino and the finance team. And the preliminary budgets was really a conclusion of principals' work and directors' work with their faculty and staff on thinking about the needs for the upcoming FY23 budget. As part of that budget process, Becky met with each of the principals, discussed kind of the budget context. As a leadership team, we spent some time thinking about if money was not a constraint by the town, what would be some of the requests we would make in the FY23 budget process. And then we had many conversations leading up to budgets being due on October 29th. Once the budgets were submitted, Becky and her team went to work and synthesized information and presented the preliminary budget, which I will be sharing with you this evening. So obviously, as the school committee knows, the driving work around our budget process is Vision 2026, our strategic plan, and really using the mission and vision of our district to drive requests and budget asks. In terms of the budget process, so we are on target for the budget calendar. It's hard to believe that November is almost in the rear view mirror. And again, the operational budget subcommittee met on November 9th to discuss the preliminary FY23 budget. And this evening, it's an opportunity for the entire committee to provide input and feedback. Hopefully, through the budget process, we'll get to our town meeting, which is scheduled for April 25th in 2022. And during this process, we've been in conversations with Town Administrator John Kader, because we are one department of many in the larger town of Northborough. Some budget variables. So each year, Chapter 70 funding and in the Student Opportunity Act funding. So Chapter 70 funding is obviously an unknown until the governor releases his budget. And then the other thing we're waiting on is what portion of the Student Opportunity Act will be funded in this FY23 state budget. And primarily, we're looking at potential increases in reimbursement for out-of-district transportation. Also unknown is out-of-district special education funding, and the percentage varies depending on the governor's budget. And the new budget variable in FY23 is really inflation. We are seeing increased costs in goods and supplies and services, in which does have an impact on the overall budget moving forward. So the next slide really is an overview of the school committee approved budget goals. And again, as you know, the committee spent a lot of time aligning goals with the strategic plan. And these goals are essential as the district moves forward, making decisions around its priorities in the FY23 budget process. And I will not read these to you. So the FY22 budget was, as you know, $25,799,678. And the preliminary budget from all the requests from the principals and directors came in at $27,527,809. Or a 6.7% increase over fiscal year 22. Knowing the context of the town and preliminary conversations with town administrator John Kader, we do know that 6.7% is not feasible moving forward to the town and the voters. And we always start with this preliminary request from principals, and we know that's the ceiling of requests. We did reduce the preliminary budget by a little under $600,000, which is bringing in the preliminary budget at $26,934,864, which represents a 4.4% increase, which is a little above, I believe, what we were at this time last year. So in terms of some budget drivers, just some increased categories. We are seeing an increase in contracted custodial cleaning services and trash removal contracts, a slight increase in technology infrastructure and maintenance and support. And this is also offset by some ESSER 3 funds that we plan on using for technology. And lastly, for out-of-district and collaborative tuitions, we're seeing an increase in a little under $200,000. So the budget drivers really total $331,039. Budget offsets. So for FY22, we have the circuit breaker for special education reimbursement offset of a little under $1.2 million. And then FY22 circuit breaker special education transportation reimbursement offset of $33,909. And that totals $1,219,176. So the preliminary budget for FY23 is, again, Becky, I think that is $26,934,864, which represents a 4.4% increase. Sorry, I had to jump around to a slide. We're at a 4.4% increase at this time. And basically that funds a level services budget and doesn't really add any new positions. As part of the budget process, we did spend time as a leadership team talking about what additions to the budget we would like to consider moving forward. And we had conversations around the following items. Adding an elementary strings program, which was part of the school committee's budget goals, budget priorities, a mathematics educator, an instructional technology specialist 2.0. So one instructional technology specialist shared between two elementary schools. The human resource generalist, which is a 0.4, that would be a shared cost with Southborough in the region. BCBA, again, that would be a shared cost with Southborough in the region. A teen chairperson and 2 mathematics interventionists and a health educator. And the total FTE equivalent is 7.7. And Becky, what was the total, approximately the total amount of those positions?
So for those positions, we're looking at about $400,000.
And approximately 200,000 is about a percent addition to their overall budget requests. So, so at this point, I'll stop sharing my screen so I can see people and answer any questions and provide any additional detail that committee members might like to hear about.
Great. Thank you, Greg, so much. I want to just make note for who's ever transcribing the record that Keith Lowell entered the meeting at 4:34 and Joan Frank entered at 4:41. So I just wanted to make note for that for the record keepers. So all Northborough school committee members are now present.
Julie,
Joan,
I am taking notes just because I saw Erin was in her car and I didn't know if she was able to.
Oh, I didn't know if Greg was, since the meeting was being recorded, I just assumed central office was taking them, but.
So I am recording and we will have central office take notes for us.
Okay, great. I'll stop typing.
And back home.
Great. Okay, Joan, would you like to start?
Yes, I have a question, and I'm sorry that I came in somewhat late. But Greg, are you saying, talking about these 7.7 positions, are you saying that these are these in the budget you're presenting to us tonight, or have they been eliminated?
So these have not been added to the budget at this point in time, Joan. Those would be in addition to. So the last operational budget subcommittee meeting, the subcommittee did ask Becky and me to work with our principals and district leaders to prioritize these positions. We do have a meeting next week where we'll talk about, if we only could add 1 position or 2 positions, what would be the top priority in terms of asks moving forward.
Okay. And Kelly, I have 2 follow-up questions to that.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, Greg, when you said did you say an increase of $200,000 on the budget is 1% of our budget?
Yeah, so it's about 250,000 is 1%. So Becky estimated the 7.7 position FTE positions would be about $400,000. So it would be 1.75% increase.
Okay, and because I'm looking at some of these positions, like when you have a 0.4 of the strings, does that mean that we are going to be adding another person for 0.4, or do we already have a music teacher who's only a 0.5 and now we're going to increase him to a 0.4?
So most likely that would be a new hire, Joan, and especially because of the specialized instruction that would need to take place.
Do you think we would be able to get somebody to only work for, only 0.4 of a position in strings?
I think we've had some success in the past. I know at Melican we had some specialized music teachers who worked part-time. So I do think we'd have some success finding a 0.4 person to teach the strings.
Okay. And then my last question, because many times we, because you have a 0.4, if you can just pull up that position, that last page that had this 7.7 staff hires potential. I know in the past we had put up, different times we would say it was a 7.7, but since some of these were going to be elevating a person from like I said, from a 0.5 to a 0.4, is that actually we would have to hire 7.7 teachers? I see team chair, yes, maybe a health educator, yes, but all those other ones, technology, that's 2 people right there. Out of the 7.7, how many actual people do we have to hire? 7.7?
Correct.
Okay.
The math educator is increasing someone who is currently in a job share and is currently working 0.5. So that would be increasing that person's position from a 0.5 to a 1.0.
So it isn't, so then it would be like we have to hire 6 new people or 7 new people, not really 8. That's the only one then.
That's the only one.
To be
And-
7.2, Becky.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, Greg, and then also if we would, best case scenario, we were able to hire these people. When you say that it's 400,000, does that also, though the town takes the share of it, does John look at it as the town administrator? Does he look at it that we're now going to be hiring new people, so therefore there's an increase in the town's budget on the health insurance?
There is the potential of that, yes. So that is accurate.
All right, so when you talk to him about this, he tells you, and you tell him these positions, he goes, you have to be aware of the impact to the town. So does he put that onto our budget numbers, what that impact would be? Though we don't put it in here. In the back of his mind, does he, in his calculations, is he putting that into, he has to put it into his budget, but does that affect our budget anyway?
I mean, I think that it's conversations we have with the town around, the budget increase that we're asking, but also the healthcare costs associated with employees that work for the district.
Okay. And then Kelly, this is the last one. Have you prioritized these to say which one we really, really need?
So we've had some preliminary conversations, but we do have a meeting scheduled with building principals after Thanksgiving break. I believe it's on Monday, I believe. And that we'll have continued conversations where we will prioritize these, Joe.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. That's the end of my questions.
No problem. Anybody else before I have questions? Erin?
I have one quick question. I don't know if this is a fair question or not, but how does our budget compare to Southborough's? Like you hear a lot of disparities between the 2 K to 8s and, oftentimes people feeling like Northborough's a little bit
I think it-
disadvantaged, yet they all funnel into Algonquin. And, I'm just curious to know, like, if you compared the two, and I know it's different numbers and this and that, but like in general and overall, are they pretty aligned or?
Well, the priorities might be different.
Yeah, I mean, I
correct?
think it would.
Right.
I think one of the I think it's a great question. I haven't specifically done a line item analysis and compared the two. I would say in terms of services to students and special education and class sizes, they're very comparable. I think one of the differences, Erin, as you know, is just the configuration of neighborhood schools and how resources are allocated. There's a big difference, which does impact how resources can be deployed. I would have to do a little bit more of an analysis. I think they're both. I think both the budgets are support the operations well in both communities, and wouldn't say one community is off balance with the other in terms of budget requests and supports.
Okay. So you think the differences are more, like Kelly said, geared towards like the priorities and that sort of thing, and not so much the actual funding?
I think it's how we can deploy resources based on
Okay.
the use of buildings and grade level configurations is the big difference.
Okay.
They
I
don't
just
have
know
more
it's come up at the Northborough school. That seems like such a big thing. And again, that's a priority thing, but are we, I just know it comes up a lot.
Yeah, and we hear about it too, and it's not always accurate.
Right.
And oftentimes, one community, and it's not just Northborough, Southborough, it's Southborough, Westborough, Southborough. It's a lot of comparisons, and sometimes the comparisons aren't accurate. There are things that Northborough has in its educational systems that Southborough doesn't.
Okay.
And there are some things that Southborough has that Northborough does not have.
Okay.
But overall, the access to resources and people and expertise is commensurate between the two communities. I will share that Northborough, the example you gave, Aaron, around instructional technology specialists.
Right.
Northborough at one time did have instructional technology specialists. And I believe I was not here when the decision was made, was to kind of go in a different direction. And
Okay.
therefore, that is one area where Southborough does have instructional technology specialists and Northborough does not at the
Okay.
elementary level.
Okay. Thank you.
Keith, I saw your hand before Joan. Sorry, Joan.
Well, thank you. It's just to add on to what Aaron was saying. What is readily available, Aaron, is the DOE per pupil spending. I don't know. Again, I'm not implying exactly what this means, but it's 7.2% higher per pupil. So we spend 19.
Southborough
This
is.
is yes.
Southborough
Yeah.
is.
This is 2020 data, and we spend 19,241 per pupil, and they spend 20,696.
Okay.
So I will share that, to that point, Keith, too, I have done an analysis of the per pupil expenditure, where each of the, there are categories within that expenditure. And there are, for example, the amount Southborough funds to maintain its buildings is higher than Northborough per pupil. So where it might not impact direct instruction or students' experiences educationally from a people perspective, there are some differences in terms of maintaining and supporting the actual infrastructure. That was one area that I did notice there was a difference.
It's interesting. Yeah, I wasn't implying anything about it. I mean, Westboro 16.9. So just kind of I've never looked at these before, so I just searched for it when Aaron mentioned it. Shrewsbury's 14.3. So both of our communities are much higher than Westboro and Shrewsbury, actually.
It's interesting how numbers play into it. Joan, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. Aaron, I just wanted to give a little retrospective because having a daughter who is long graduated alumni from the class of 2002, what you're talking about now is what we talked about as a parent at Peasley School and at Millikan School. We were always doing the comparisons and we always worried about it. Were our kids going to be prepared when they all went up to the high school? And was one going to be better than the other? Was one going to be more prepared? And was somebody at a deficit? And to tell you the truth, when they get up to Algonquin, they're all one, and there is never any students that are behind in Northborough students versus Southborough and Southborough. And sometimes it isn't even as much as you give per pupil expenditure. And I taught in a school district where we had all grades 4 and all grade 5, just almost like Southborough has. And we were always told, parents would always try to compare classrooms. And I think even here, they'll try to compare classrooms. You really can't do it because you have the makeup and the configuration of the kids that are in the room. But when they all get done, they have an excellent education. And when my daughter now looks back and she has friends in Northborough and Southborough, I never say one is ahead, one's behind, one had a better education, so they have a better career. It just depends what the kids want to take from the thing. So all I'm trying to say is I was in the same place as you and worried about if Southborough was ahead of us. And when you get to the high school, all those fears or those concerns that you have are rest aside, and the kids all come together as one, and not where you live puts you behind at any way, because we also get transfer students in from other districts. So I think parents are always going to do the comparison, and that's fine. But once you look at the final product, and they're great kids, they really are. So I hope that just somewhat eases
That
any
helps.
comparison.
Thanks.
you.
Lauren?
Thank you. So I think it's great to see that list of, all the different positions that our district could benefit from. As you know, I'm a huge proponent for music, being part of the music study group. I think that was last year or the year before. So I definitely think that has been a topic for many years prior to even me being a school committee member. So I would be definitely a proponent for including that position. I think that the conversation with principals will be key in trying to prioritize these. And one thing that I would ask that you do during your conversation is to sort of make sure that not just, there isn't just one school reaping the benefits of these added positions, that there is some fairness between those. So, it's not just all the positions are going to the middle school or all to Peasley, for example. I did have a question about team chair. Is that a special ed position, or is that it is special ed? Okay, so for a specific building or for all the elementary schools?
No, it's currently we have a 1.0 team chair who is shared across the 4 elementary schools. And so this would be adding a second team chairperson. So there'd be one team chairperson for every 2 elementary schools.
Okay. And so their role, they would work with teachers regarding IEPs and 504s.
Correct. So they would facilitate the processes at meetings. There would be liaison to families, and they would free up our special education teachers to not have to kind of lead and facilitate team meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And they could spend more time working with their students and following the IEP.
Okay. I'm curious how administration goes about thinking about balancing, the needs of our district with all of these asks for these positions. It's a lot, 7.7, which represents about a 1.25% increase on top of already a preliminary budget that is 4.4. When you add it all up, if you get everything you really hope for, that's still a pretty big increase. So I guess my question is, we're going to add some of these positions for sure. How do we go from here with our 4.4 plus whatever we're going to be adding for FTEs?
My guess is retirements, but
Yeah, so I think that it's important to note that the 4.4% budget that we're sharing with you this evening really is the first step in a longer budget process. As a leadership team with principals and directors, we have a lot more conversations and discussions around, how do our strategic plan goals, our school improvement plan goals align to what we're asking in our FY23 budget. So it's continued conversations, it's prioritizing and making sure our asks are aligned with goals. Kelly mentioned there are also some unknowns right now in terms of retirements, attrition. There's conversations around some of the requests principals have put in the FY23 budget that are contained in this preliminary budget that we need to have more discussion and discourse around. So there's just a lot more work, and it's just continued dialogue, aligning our priorities with the Vision 2026 and the school committee budget priorities as well.
Thank you.
Um,
Kelly, I had one more question,
Yep,
but if
go
you-
ahead.
Of course, I'm going to forget it. I'm sorry, I lost it. You can go to
It's
someone
okay.
else.
I'll circle back with you.
Okay.
So unless anybody else has anything right quickly, I was just the two notes that I made is one, Joan kind of touched upon it a little bit, was insurance. I know one of the things was the town is, I think what we can't have insurance for the schools anymore or for that, and they were looking for new insurance or vice versa or
Yes,
something
so
like that.
Alan, who's our, the town of Northborough single carrier provider.
Yeah, they
for
want
health insurance.
civic
They're at-
only.
They are now exiting the commercial insurance business,
Yeah.
which means the town as well as the region have to go out for requests for proposals for healthcare insurance.
Okay.
So that potentially has an impact on the overall town budget, which then impacts potentially the.
Would that impact us too?
I think.
Or is that just for the negotiations?
It could impact us. I mean, I think we're
Yeah.
partnering with John as well as the town of Southborough because the region is in the same
Yeah.
situation. So we have pooled our resources together and hopefully coming together as versus just one town.
What does
one-
Southborough use?
So they use Fallon and Tufts, and they are partnering in this process as well to see if we
Okay.
can increase our overall pool.
Okay, so
get
it
a
would be the
discount rate.
town of Southborough, the schools of Southborough, the town of Northborough, the schools of Northborough, and the region.
Correct.
So hopefully we can get something. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be good. The other thing is that, and I know, I mean, we can't live in the past and stuff like that, but so last year's increase was, I think, was that a 4% or something? But remember, like 2 years ago, was it? I can't keep track of the years now. We ended up having like a 0 or a 1%, 1%. So then how does this budget fare and where we should be if COVID never happened? Or are those numbers like totally obsolete now? Does
Yeah,
that-
and I think it is. I mean, I think it's a great point. I think we are. I mean, I don't think we can, go back and say, because we only had a 1% increase in FY21, we should have had a 4.47 in FY22. Therefore, we should be asking for X in FY23. But I think, these are the percent increases over the past 6 years. And again, the highest increase the school department has actually appropriated was 3.5%. So I think the school committee has brought in very fiscally responsible budgets. And this also speaks to a larger partnership with the town of Northborough and partnership with the town administration. And again, the school committee and the school department understanding that we're one budget of many, but we're also the largest budget in the town and have the greatest impact in terms of the overall operational budget of the town of Northborough.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that answers your question.
It does. Yeah, it's nice to see where it is. Yeah. So what, I know this is the first meeting. But I know how in the past, like sometimes, Becky, you've worked like, okay, if we're told we have to cut off 1%, this is what we would be cutting off. If we have to cut off 2%, this is what. Have you started that yet or no?
Yes, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that work began when we met with the principals. I think, what was it, last week? I believe we had our first meeting with the principals. And we asked them to go back and look at their budgets and report back to us again next week when we need to talk about the positions, where some areas where they think that they may be able to find some savings. And then my team and I go through the budget pretty much line by line and just, look for any areas where we think we might be able to make some adjustments.
Okay.
So as part of our work, one of the challenges is that none of the budget process is kind of a team. It's a collaborative process that We do not ask each principal, oh, go and reduce your budget by X amount to get to a percentage. We ask people to think, and then we come and sit around the table and have conversations around potential scenarios. So right now, principals are, as Becky indicated, are in the process of doing what if scenarios. What if we could add 2% to the budget? What if we had to reduce the budget to a 3%, a 2%, and a 1%? So we are prepared to share with the committee what the impact would be if we had to come in at a certain percentage. But it's a very collaborative. There's a lot of discussion and discourse amongst the team to get to a budget number through this process. I just have a couple of comments. So the presentation that Becky and I plan to give at the school committee meeting most likely will be the 4.4% budget increase. Not too many.
Is that
changes.
this month, December one you're doing,
yes,
right? Or
yep.
January? Okay.
With the understanding that we still have conversations with principals next week happening, the prioritization of the principal of the positions. We do feel like there is some movement in terms of retirements that we're trying to secure. So there is the potential. It's not an either or. It's either we add positions to the budget and the budget increases. It's really both. We can have a level service budget and add positions that principals are requesting through attrition of retirements. And we feel like we most likely can do that with bringing in a fiscally responsible and educationally sound budget. I will share that there isn't a chance we can bring a 7.7 FTE increase to the committee as a recommended budget without a significant % increase in the overall budget.
Anybody else? Joan.
I guess I'm the question lady today, every day. Greg or Becky, in this budget here, is there any areas where you had to increase it for potential increase in costs, such as for gasoline for anybody? Did we reimburse them? Or heating in the buildings for next year? Do you put something into the budget to allow for any of these increases? And then my second question is, I know that it's not on the agenda, so maybe we cannot talk about it, but I know that you said that there was a hold on this year's budget, and I was wondering how that was going, not a hold, but
A freeze.
a freeze. Thank you. A freeze on the budget, and wondering how we're going to do with that freeze. Do you see that because of gasoline being increased right now, price per gallon, is that affecting anything that we do in our heating cost, that we may have to go to the town to ask for any additional money to get us through? So I don't know if that last part, if you can talk about it or not.
So in terms of the heating cost, it's still fairly early in the heating season. We do track all of our utilities, though. We have Excel spreadsheets for everything, but we do have Excel spreadsheets for our utilities, and we are tracking those very closely. So right now, it's really too soon for us to tell for the heating. We have seen increases in electricity costs. And I think that is because of the HEPA air filters that we have in all of the classrooms. We did see that increase last year. In terms of like gasoline, though, for vehicles, we really don't have a large number. We do reimburse for employee transportation, but it's very small. It's actually a set amount, so that's not going to be a variable. In terms of this year's budget, we are, Greg and I are meeting on a weekly basis to review it. We have gone through line by line, and at this point in time, I do have some stopgap measures that are ready if needed. So I'm feeling a bit more confident about the FY22 budget. just from doing that exercise, that I know that through some of the ESSER funding that we've received, that if necessary, we do have some places where we could go to achieve some relief.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your due diligence. You must go number crazy at night, or I don't know how you could relax and go to sleep without numbers going through your dreams. But thank you very much for everything that you're doing to make sure that we're staying financially sound and looking ahead, which you have to do. I mean, there's so many new things that were added this year. So thank you to you, your staff, and to Greg. Thank you.
Becky, I'll just add that we, the variable in terms of heating and fuel costs. So we do have fixed rates in terms of our electricity costs, and we have locked that in. That is something we partnered with the town of Northborough on. What we are not sure of is usage. And as Becky mentioned, that is the variable. How much, the usage has definitely increased as a result of COVID-19 and having windows open and HEPA filters. So that is the unknown. But we try to work proactively and lock in rates over multiple years. So again, over a period of time, we average out our costs and we don't get impacted by any significant increase that's unexpected.
Okay, thank you. And then Kelly, I have one follow-up. Greg, just for clarification, because I came in late. So this budget is a 4.4% increase. What is the recommended budget increase John wants? Between 3 and 4?
Yeah, so we're still, I haven't had enough conversations with John. I think John is still kind of doing the overall financial picture of the town. And he hasn't given us an exact number, but usually it's between, at this point in time, it's usually between a 2.5 and a 4%. But again, I have not had that conversation with John yet about the Northborough budget.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure if John has set his meeting date for the financial trend monitoring meeting. But that typically is in that process of scheduling that meeting and preparing. That's usually when we'll get some a window or kind of a framing of what the school budget, what the town could support in terms of the school budget.
Is there any other discussion, Aaron? Or not Aaron, sorry, Lauren?
Yes, I just wanted to respond. I did reach out to the assistant town administrator, Becca. She said they haven't solidified a date for the financial trend monitoring date. They said that the tentative date is the 15th. I don't know if that means December or January 15th. I would think that December 15th might be a little too soon. So perhaps it's January.
I feel like they're usually early December, I feel like.
They are.
So
Last
that
year,
might be December 15th might be accurate.
December 15th is a Wednesday.
So we have our combined meeting.
Oh yeah.
And our
January 15th is actually a Saturday. So yeah, she must have meant
maybe
December.
January, because it was January 14th last year.
Okay. Well, it's a Saturday this year. So yeah.
It was on a Thursday last year, Thursday, January 14th last year.
Okay. I'll just reach back out to Becca to let her know that we do have a combined meeting. So I just wanted to say that. And then also, secondly, I remembered my question from before. It actually wasn't really a question. It was more just thinking about space when we're thinking about these employees and whether these employees would have space in the buildings that they're being requested. So just making sure that that's part of the discussion.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot going on this year that could potentially help the budget also in the future years by talking about solar. That's, a group that is, going that, and then the possible reconfiguration of the schools. Those could potentially help the budget in the long run too. So, and I know this is a preliminary thing, but thank you guys very much for putting it all together for us. Your team's amazing. Becky, you're amazing. Like how you, you're on top of all of it. So, I know, I think I can speak for the committee, but when we say thank you so much, we appreciate all your hard work. So, if there's nothing else, if anybody wants to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
First, Lauren makes a motion and Aaron seconds.
I think it was Joan.
Was it Joan? Joan seconded?
yes.
Yep.
I think Aaron and I were in competition there.
Okay. So Lauren makes the motion to adjourn, Joan seconds, and without further discussion, we are adjourned at 5:17.
Roll call,
Roll call vote. Thank you. Joan,
yes.
Keith,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
myself, Kelly Gannett. Yes. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
And have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Take care, everyone.